You ever get that feeling when you're reading a story, that sense of deep, creeping unease? Well, what if that story could feel you reading it? What if you could turn it into something that watches you back? Today, we're going to look at exactly how you build interactive fear.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? How do you bottle that feeling of psychological dread and make it something you can actually play? And I mean, we're not talking about cheap jump scares here. We're talking about building an experience that kind of gets to know you, that learns from your choices, and then uses all that to create a custom-made nightmare just for you. So, how on earth do you even begin to do that?
Well, it all starts with the seed, a single, unsettling question. This one, right from the heart of the Bluebeard fairy tale, is just perfect. It's not about some monster in the woods, it's a domestic mystery. It's a little hint of betrayal that suggests, maybe the worst horrors are the ones you find behind your own closed doors. Okay, so to take that creepy little seed and grow it into a full interactive world, you need a very specific kind of architect. This is where the narrative designer comes in. Their job starts when a client approaches them, not just asking for a game, but for a whole bespoke psychological landscape.
So let's start right there, with the vision. The client's request is usually pretty complex, and it's aiming for a very specific kind of feeling, something that goes way beyond your typical game.
So check this out. The client's mandate is clear. They want an AI roleplay bot, something more personal than a standard game. They want scenarios that totally flip the script on the whole damsel in distress trope. The goal here is a deep dive into psychological horror, specifically a feminine kind of horror. So no monsters, but plenty of betrayal, gaslighting, and loss. It's all about that slow, psychological unraveling.
All right, with that vision locked in, the narrative designer gets to work. And they need a blueprint, right? A repeatable process for taking all these abstract fears and turning them into real, concrete moments you can interact with.
And here's that process basically boiled down to 3 key steps. First, you have to completely deconstruct the source material, the world you're starting with. Then, you script out all the key interactive moments, the points where the player gets to actually do something. And finally, you program the AI's persona, giving it the intelligence that's going to guide the whole experience.
So, step 1, deconstruct the world. The foundation for this whole thing, its skeleton really, comes from the source material. In this case, it's this sprawling, sentient house inspired by the Bluebeard story. But you have to get this. The house isn't just a setting, it's a living character. A place where reality gets fuzzy and your own senses can turn against you.
Now, for the magic. How do you take a description on a page and make it breathe? How do you build an encounter that feels totally scripted, but also deeply, deeply personal?
It almost always starts with something simple, something that seems almost random. The designer will comb through the source text, looking for an object that sparks some interest. So, in a room called the gallery, they find this. An unfinished sculpture of a skeletal hand. Okay, it's a little weird, but it's not terrifying. Yet.
The horror only kicks in when you make a choice. The designer scripts the what if. What if the player decides to investigate? You touch it, you search the dust around it, and suddenly you find a horrifying truth that was hidden in plain sight. An inanimate object just became evidence of a forgotten tragedy. And that, right there, is the core of this whole process.
And this table just lays it all out so brilliantly. This is the translation. The room's description from the text, that becomes the AI's opening scene. The weird object, that's the first prompt the AI gives you. The actions you can take, like searching the dust, that becomes your menu of choices. And the horrifying discovery, that's the AI's scripted, branching response. It's a methodical, almost scientific way to engineer dread.
But what's so cool is how flexible this blueprint is. You can take that same haunted house, that same skeleton, and use it as the foundation for totally different experiences. You can tailor it to a new client's vision for any, let's call it an age of horror they want.
So let's pretend a client comes in. They want an experience that feels like the industrial age. The horror they're looking for isn't ghosts or ghouls. It's the horror of perfection, of obsession, of crushing societal standards.
So the designer pulls elements from the house's craft wing. In the sewing room, there's a corset that crawls on its own, trying to force you into shape. Perfection as a literal prison. In the machine shop, a perfect little porcelain clockwork child follows you, calling you mommy. Creation as obsession. And in the artist's studio, a painting weaponizes your own self-doubt, whispering your worst insecurities right back at you.
Now let's say a different client comes along. They want to explore the terrors hidden in the home.
You know, the horror of servitude, of family secrets, and the quiet grief that can just poison a house from the inside out.
For this, the designer turns to the house's support wing. In the freezer, you find this tragic scene of an ice bride, a moment of profound loss literally frozen solid. In the laundry room, a maid's hands have actually fused to her hot iron, a symbol of endless, brutal servitude. And in the kitchen, a pot of stew has a tiny, unmistakably human toe floating in it. Yeah, the secrets in the walls are sometimes in the soup.
Then a third client could come in and ask for the most unsettling journey yet, one that explores the violation of personal space, of your own body, and the betrayal of trust in places that are supposed to be safe.
Here, things get deeply personal and uncomfortable. In the master bedroom, a decorative skeleton seems to hide the body of a woman struggling against an attacker you can't see. The chapel becomes a place where religion is used as punishment to enforce feelings of inadequacy. And in the bathhouse, what should be a cleansing ritual becomes a terrifying ordeal as an attendant scrubs you so violently that your hair starts falling out.
So you see how this all connects. We've got the world, we've got the scripted encounters, but there's one final, crucial piece that ties it all together and makes the whole thing truly intelligent. And this is it. The AI itself is given a persona. In the source material, it's called the groundskeeper. This isn't just lines of code running in the background. It's an active intelligence in the story, a narrator, a guide, a force that is constantly watching what you do and tailoring the horror to you in real time.
This quote from the material just says it all perfectly. The house and all its scripted horrors, that's the skeleton. But it's the AI, the groundskeeper, that actually works with you, the player. It uses your choices and your reactions to give that skeleton flesh, blood, and a mind of its own.
And that really brings us to the most revolutionary question of all, doesn't it? What happens when a story stops being something that is just told to you and starts being something that actually listens to you? It's a completely different kind of storytelling.
Because in the end, what the narrative designer has built isn't just a game or an AI bot. By creating a world that responds to our deepest anxieties and our most private decisions, what they've really crafted is a mirror. One that shows you your own fears, reshaped into a story that you, and only you, have to survive.